This talk explores how intersubjective relations between visual and aural perspectives can be used to construct what I refer to as ambient embodied co-presence in YouTube videos. We'll focus on how a sense of digital intimacy is enacted in personal attention roleplay videos, a type of ASMR video. And this kind of video has become popular on YouTube. ASMR, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, is the experience of positive sensations in response to visual or aural stimuli. Online video sharing platforms such as YouTube have provided a way for people who experience these ASMR sensations to watch, produce and disseminate ASMR invoking material. The presentation will explore some of the ways that these types of videos forge an immersive or faux interactional context and invoke the visual and aural perspective and embodiment of the ambient viewer who's watching the video. It will also touch on the forms of ambient affiliation that are engendered as people bond in the comment section of ASMR videos. Exploring embodied semiosis necessarily brings us into contact with what might be described as semiotic margins. That is, meaning-making resources other than language, especially those modes that are often considered to lie on the borders, fringes and peripheries of semiosis, and which have tended to receive less attention from the field of semiotics and from the field of linguistics. It might also cause us to question what is meant by paralanguage. In what sense para? Are we assuming meanings about being beside, alongside, from, beyond, aside from? So what kind of sense of para is embedded in the model that we're applying? For instance, when working on meanings made with the body, we might see this as semiosis dependent, sometimes referred to as parasitic on language, and realized through, for instance, voice quality and body language, including facial expression, gesture, posture, and body movement. This will in turn bring up really thorny issues about the relations between semiotic modes and how we model them. For instance, do you manage intermodality by proposing a single system of valeur, so a single coordinating system of meaning? And how do we model this? Do we see it as being on a higher stratum or not? Realize axially or interstratally by two or more modalities? So realizational integration? Or do you propose a coupling process, weaving together meanings, so kind of converging concurrent meanings from different modalities brought together in a single text, instantial integration? So these are the kinds of issues that confront us when we work on embodied meaning. So let's look at the concept of co-presence and its relation to the visual and aural representation of perspective. That is, how a video, for example, a YouTube video, a multimodal text, positions us to look through the eyes or hear through the ears of a particular perspective, and how this is enacted in digital discourse. I refer to this as intersubjective perspective, since it is in fact a relation between perspectives rather than ever a singular perspective. So what do we mean by co-presence? Co-presence can be defined as forging a sense of being with others. This can involve mutual entrainment with the attention, emotion and behaviour of others. It is usually traced to Goffman's ideas about people being accessible, available and subject to one another in face-to-face interactions. Early work in the 1970s tended to be concerned with the degree of salience of the other person in proximate interactions between people in the same physical space. As work expanded into non-face-to-face and digital interactive contexts, increased dimensions beyond physical proximity needed to be accounted for. Early work in the 90s defined co-presence, referred to simply as presence, as the perceptual illusion of non-mediation that created a sense of immersion by interactions in digital environments. With the advent of social media platforms and various kinds of apps for facilitating online connection and interaction, we're currently witnessing the appearance of new types of co-present visuality and sociality that draw on discursive practices of ambient affiliation, through which people create different kinds of alignments, enact identities, and form or contest communities, in other words, how they bond. This co-presence allows people to enact forms of digital intimacy, that is, the dimension of affiliation concerned with closeness and sharing, but which also in digital environments relies heavily on representing intersubjective perspectives, so that is relations between perspectives, as we will see. For instance, in work on selfies and social photography, I've looked at how the intersubjective positioning of forms of what I refer to as inferred selfies feature a visual structure that includes body parts of the photographer or other traces such as shadows, and how these can be used to create co-presence or visual co-presence that is recontextualized across different domains of social life, as suggested by the hashtags appended to the images that you can see on your screen, so teacher life, mum life, traveller life. I've also looked at visual structures in YouTube vlogs that present the vlogger's perspective on their personal objects using intimate kinds of point of view shots. So point of view is a filmic technique where the camera assumes the position of a subject in order to show us what the subject sees. So in exploring co-presence and intersubjectivity, we necessarily need to be able to account for how visual perspectives are both enacted and negotiated in visual images. Let's start with a little background on what exactly ASMR is. So the experience of ASMR is created through positive sensory reaction to certain kinds of aural or visual stimuli, such as whispering, crinkling, or tapping sounds, or repetitive flowing hand movements. I can remember experiencing ASMR as a child in reaction to a pleasant sounding voice, but had no idea at the time what it was. And I didn't know it was an actual phenomenon until my son recently explained ASMR to me through his contact with it on YouTube. So unpacking the acronym, ASMR refers to autonomous, meaning that the individual possesses the ability to facilitate or produce a sensation at will, being sensory, referring to the transmission of information through the nervous system and brain in response to an external trigger, and the individual's simultaneous perception of this feedback with the senses. And meridian, in the sense of meaning the highest point or apex, and also an antiquated term for euphoria. Okay, so people experience pleasant sensations when they experience ASMR. Reactions to triggers are described by people in the comments feeds of ASMR videos as pleasant physical sensations. So you can see an example on the screen. I've highlighted in red some of the positive attitude in the linguistic choices made in the text. We might think of the coupling of ASMR, the video, the YouTuber as ideational targets. So the coupling of these with these positive aesthetic and emotional assessments as tabling or offering a bond to the ambient commenters in the video comment feed that they may take up if they reply to the particular comment. ASMR videos are often produced using binaural microphones, and you can see a set of them on the screen. And they're designed to be listened to through headphones so you can experience the immersive sensation of the sounds in relation to your body, so occurring maybe on either side of your ears or around or behind you. For some reason, this alternating ear-to-ear sound is a pleasant ASMR triggering experience for some people. And you'll notice that many YouTube videos feature the YouTuber whispering in one corner of the screen and then the other, in tandem with the shifts in the binaural audio. So binaural sound is a form of headphone-targeted audio that aims to reproduce accurately the acoustic properties of the space in which it was recorded therefore situating the listener at the site of the audio capture. So it's oriented to creating this sensation of embodiment, of being there with the YouTuber, hearing these sounds as if the person viewing the video was in the same space. The dataset I've been working with are roleplay videos scraped from Gentle Whispering ASMR, a popular YouTuber, from her YouTube channel. They were extracted from the playlist that she has designated as Relaxing ASMR Roleplays Personal Attention. So that's her categorization. And there are a range of other types of ASMR that she produces. For instance, videos that do not feature any faux interaction, so no faux interactive dimensions, and are just her making nice noises with the fancy binaural microphones. Personal attention roleplay videos address the ambient viewer with expressions of care, interests, and affirmation, with the aim of creating an immersive scenario. This scenario constructs the ambient viewer as co-present in the fictional setup, be that a close shave and trim by a hairdresser or a character such as Marilyn Monroe doing your makeup. Various visual and aural strategies are used to forge a sense of ambient, embodied co-presence. In other words, these strategies invoke or represent the visual or aural perspective of the ambient viewer in the kinds of ways that we'll explore today. So let's start by looking at aural perspective in the ASMR roleplay videos. All the roleplay videos in the dataset employed a spoken voice quality that ranged from soft spoken voice to a complete whisper. The voice quality utilised a lower pitch and volume than would be found in more public settings that tend towards a higher, intenser, what Van Leeuwen refers to as a projected voice, a higher, intenser projected voice. In terms of choices in voice quality proposed by Van Leeuwen, the YouTuber tended towards a lax rather than tense voice that was soft, smooth, and breathy, and a non-nasal and plain rather than vibrato voice. This soft-spoken voice that the YouTuber employed seemed to enact two main functions: enhancing the sensory pleasure of viewers for whom this soft voice quality invokes ASMR sensations, and forging intimacy with the ambient audience. This accords with Van Leeuwen's linking of voice quality with parameters of social distance in multimodal text. So the loud voice carries furthest and claims most territory. The soft voice, on the other hand, excludes all but a few others and can therefore become associated with intimacy and confidentiality. Choices in aural perspective accorded with Van Leeuwen's framework in the sense of dividing simultaneous sounds into groups and placing these groups at different distances from the listener so as to make the listener relate to them in different ways. The ASMR videos in the dataset tended to foreground the voice of the YouTuber along with the sound they produced, for example, by tapping on objects with their fingernails. They foregrounded this as figure against a ground. That is, as treated as the most important sound, the sound which the listener must identify with and or react to and or act upon. This choice couples with the intimate social distance to foreground the private closeness being construed, being ambiently construed. This system network, a network where the curly brackets mean and the square brackets mean or in terms of meaning-making choices. This network shows these two simultaneous choices of perspectival sound with the voice foregrounded as figure and whispered voice construing an intimate social distance. These choices come together to generate the intimate relation between the YouTuber and the ambient audience. So in the data set, heightened intimacy is construed through the intimate whispered voice foregrounded as figure. For example, in this sensory roleplay video, the YouTuber's soft-spoken voice construes an intimate social distance that is echoed in her verbiage. where she explicitly refers to the close connection she is attempting to forge with the ambient viewer, as she says, "So we are bonding, you and me." Her whispered voice is figure, and the social distance choice is intimate.
So we are bonding, you and me.
Now let's turn to how the fictive context is created by the YouTuber, since it is important for enabling the ambient interaction to be performed, as it provides the semiotic space in which the interaction can be represented. The fictive or faux scenario that is performed affords both a visual and aural semiotic environment in which the ambient embodied co-presence can occur in the virtual space. So, for example, in this video, the scenario is a visit with a witch with a sassy personality, complete with background, makeup, and costume choices aimed at evoking fantasy interaction. The videos in the dataset spanned three main types of portrayed personal and institutional interactional contexts. Service encounters, such as interactions with doctors, teachers, or shop attendants. Casual interactions featuring forms of casual conversation with characters. And sensory play, where there is a faux interaction with the viewer, but the focus is on playing around with sound triggers. The videos typically begin with the YouTuber establishing the tenor of the interpersonal relationship being performed, for instance, in a dental cleaning visit, a naturopath visit, a bank visit, or a massage session, as the examples on the screen show. They do this by acknowledging the ambient viewer's presence via a vocative or a greeting, combined with a direct gaze towards the eye level of the ambient viewer. The linguistic choices just mentioned, coupled with the visual and aural choices that invoke the viewer's ambient presence in the faux interactional context. This interactional context can be portrayed through objects and background elements that are in keeping with the fictive scenario. For example, a bank visit featuring a desk and files with a YouTuber dressed in office attire. So we've got a greeting, we have soft-spoken voice, tapping of the fingers on an object. Then we've got domain-specific objects, domain-specific background, costume, etc. Mid-range visual framing, eye-level gaze, and smiling. Close-up visual framing can also be used to keep the focus on the relation between the YouTuber and the ambient viewer, in turn fostering a sense of intimacy and directed attention. Roleplay videos will often include verbal requests for information or permission directed at the ambient viewer that emphasise that what is being performed is intended to be viewed as an interaction, even if it really isn't an interaction. For example, in sensory roleplay videos, YouTubers will often ask for permission to touch part of the viewer's body before simulating the action in the video. So, for example, where Maria says, "May I?" Now that we have established how the interactional context is constructed, let's look at how the ambient viewer's imagined visual perspective is represented within the scenario that has been established. Many videos in the dataset include objects that are placed over the visual frame to simulate the ambient viewer's visual perspective. So to simulate this perspective on the action that is being represented. So for example, with the blanket covering the visual frame in the example that you can see on the screen. This example, the YouTuber is tucking the ambient viewer into bed and places the blanket at the foreground of the visual frame. At the same time, she comments on the feeling of the blanket against the viewer's skin and asking whether they like it. The positioning of the object in this way couples with the sound of the blanket being rubbed against the microphone, both to create the sense that it is touching the viewer and to produce a noise that will invoke ASMR for some people.
Okay, just make sure covered up around your neck right here. You like this feeling of plush around your cheek? It is so soft. It just feels like, I don't know, like you're rubbing your cheek on a kitten's tummy. It is so pleasant. Yeah, be cozy wrapped in a blanket.
Another example is this video, where the YouTuber is performing the role of a beautician and is representing the action of placing a gel pack on the ambient viewer's face. She places it in the foreground and around the edges of the visual field as if she is placing it over the viewer's face.
How does that feel? Just crisscross it right here. Okay. And I will gently be pressing it into your skin. And you already feel the warmth coming from the beads.
Items were also positioned on screen to give the impression that they were worn on the body of the ambient viewer. For example, in this video, in this scenario, the YouTuber is dressing the ambient viewer, who is portrayed as an astronaut about to embark on a space mission. She is lowering the astronaut helmet over the ambient viewer's head, and this is represented by a clear object moving over the visual field.
I'm going to put it over your head, okay? Alright, try not to press against your ears too much. How's this?
At times, the YouTuber would also cover the periphery of the visual frame with their hands to suggest touching the ambient viewer's face in coordination with touching the binaural microphone. This created the sensation, or is likely to create the sensation of the sound in parts of the viewer's ears that correspond to the position depicted on the screen. And for many people, sound and gestures alternating from side to side seem to enhance ASMR feelings. So many videos will adopt this side-to-side kind of visual and aural strategy.
So we are bonding.
Another way in which the ambient viewer's visual perspective was represented was through the orientation of objects relative to the foreground of the visual frame. For example, this video is a tea tasting video in which the YouTuber is inviting the viewers to smell the tea that she's holding. She positions the tea to the front of the visual field as if she is offering it to the viewer.
Wonderful. Now your turn. Same way. Breathe out.
These roleplay videos not only represent the ambient viewer's imagined visual and aural perspective, but they also use particular semiotic strategies to invoke the ambient viewer's corporeality. ASMR videos are focused on the bodily sensations of the ambient viewer and on creating a feeling in the ambient viewer that they are physically experiencing the roleplay scenario that's been constructed. This is part of creating conditions for experiencing ASMR sensation. Thus, the visual and aural resources used to construe the ambient viewer's embodiment are particularly important to enacting the social function of the video, whereby the ambient viewer becomes lost in the perceptual illusion of non-mediation, as if this isn't a video. So now we will explore how the co-occurrence of gesture and sound are used to invoke the bodily experience of the ambient viewer, or rather the fictional representation of that experience. So as I mentioned earlier, you're supposed to listen to these videos with headphones. So the roleplay videos make use of binaural sounds and are designed to be listened to with headphones on so that you experience the sound emanating from the parts of your body that correspond to what is visually represented in the video. In this way, they represent the aural embodiment of the ambient viewer. close-up gestures performed in the foreground of the visual frame, together with the audio recorded to sound like it's emanating from the same area, are used to create this kind of sensation.
Caress your ears ever so gently, if you don't mind.
For example, in this beauty consultation roleplay video, the YouTuber brushes the front of the visual field with an object, so in this case a makeup brush, as if they are applying makeup to the different zones of the ambient viewer's face.
Just put it all over. And I know the couple.
Some videos will also include props designed to simulate part of the ambient viewer's body, and in this way more explicitly represent the ambient viewer's imagined body in the actual video. For example, this video is a massage roleplay video that includes fake legs underneath a blanket as a prop, as you can see in the image, to suggest the ambient viewer's legs, and the YouTuber interacts with this prop. Other props include fake hair at the periphery of the visual frame, for example in hairdressing videos. So in summary, we have explored how detailed multimodal analysis of linguistic, visual and aural features can be used to understand how digital intimacy can be construed in YouTube videos through resources of ambient embodied co-presence. The three key dimensions of the performance that we explored were the construction of the interactive context in which the ambient co-presence is situated, or the faux interactive context, the construction of the ambient viewer's visual and aural perspective, and the construction of the ambient viewer's simulated corporeality or embodiment. In each case, the co-presence can either be inferred through the visual and aural location or orientation of objects, gestures and sounds, or directly represented via a prop or other performative element. The ambient embodied co-presence explored with these roleplay video dataset is particularly interesting when we consider how deftly these videos manage intersubjective positioning and intersubjective perspective. The videos perform a representation of an intersubjective relation. They represent the YouTuber's perspective on the ambient viewer's perspective on their simulated interaction with the YouTuber. The visual and aural choices that we've explored open up a possibility for ambient viewers to occupy the visual and aural perspectives engendered. It is this possibility that enables the ambient viewer to share in the experience of sensory enjoyment and ambient intimacy in the ASMR. Such intersubjective flexibility is necessary if the actual viewer of the video is to be able to imagine themselves or position themselves in the role, in the role play as the recipient of the personal attention being depicted. Thus, these videos must perform the difficult work of both constructing a sense of embodiment at the same time as moving beyond any individual's actual body. Both processes must be simultaneously enacted in order to construct the ambient co-presence so essential to the ASMR function of these videos. If you're interested in reading more about what I've talked about today, I've written a paper on this which has been published in Visual Communication, Digital Intimacy and Ambient Embodied Co-Presence in YouTube Videos. Future work on ASMR might bring in more systematic analysis of the meanings made, for example, with gesture. So I've been involved in a project modelling paralanguage using systemic functional semiotics, a recent book that's come out, where we construct a social semiotic model of how spoken language and body language, such as gesture, coordinate. Also bringing in more systematic descriptions of sound, perhaps collaborating with people in sonic arts or musicology might be a possibility. So thank you for listening, and I encourage you to enjoy the sensory pleasure of ASMR. If roleplay videos are a little weird for you, and I know some people find them a bit strange, you might just find that listening to videos that simply include ASMR triggering sounds might be what you enjoy. And if you can't experience ASMR, or you have yet to experience ASMR, there's always a possibility in the future, you might simply find these kinds of videos and sounds relaxing.